Welcome to Law Talk Today, a series devoted to bringing you informative and educational programs focused on issues of law, government, and community. Hello, and welcome to Law Talk Today. I'm Dan Agatino, your host. Joining us in studio is Rosa Rickett, a specialist in education law. Rosa, thanks for coming in.
Hello, Dan. Thanks for having me here.
So you work in a very interesting area of the law, and you help people who have children with special needs who have to interact with their local school board. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. There's a lot that is entailed in the process of obtaining an appropriate educational program for a child that is disabled. And of course, as you can imagine, parents who have a disabled child, even a newly disabled child, don't always know their rights and don't always know what they're entitled to under the law.
Let me ask you, what do you mean by a newly disabled child?
Well, what happens is, in New Jersey, there is something called an early intervention program, which means that a child who is age 2 or turning 3 years of age during that year within which they're 2 but turning 3, they're entitled to something called early intervention until they are age 5. And what happens is, during that time, they're entitled to certain services in order to address their disabilities. It could be speech, it could be occupational therapy, depending on what that particular child's needs are. Subsequent to that child turning the appropriate age when they become merged into the school district, they then are subject to different type of an evaluation now by the child study team of the school district in which they are entering.
Child study team, what's that?
A child study team is a group of professionals that is employed by every school district, and usually every school has their own child study team. Some districts have just one child study team, some districts have numerous child study teams. They're comprised of different professionals. Those are usually a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, a school psychologist, and those are the people that evaluate a child that is presented for eligibility under the IDEA, which is the Individualist Education Disabilities Act. And what that is when a child comes in, and usually a child is referred either by the parents or their teacher or somebody else. Sometimes school districts really have an obligation to find these children as well. It's called the child find aspect of the federal regulations, the IDEA.
So this is a federal act. This is not a state law.
This is a federal act. What it is there's the federal act is called the IDEA, but every state is mandated by the IDEA to have their own state regulations. And they're usually a version of the IDEA. They may vary a little bit, but the federal act mandates certain things that have to happen, certain steps that school districts have to take in order to educate children with disabilities. And then the states have their own version of their own regulations, which are a version of the IDEA.
And if someone wants to find out about this, can they just go online, type in IDEA?
Absolutely.
And look about the New Jersey version of that act?
The New Jersey version can be found in the New Jersey regulations, in the New Jersey Administrative Code, and that can be obtained on the New Jersey Department of Education website. If your viewers choose, they can Google the New Jersey Department of Education, and within that they can find the New Jersey Administrative Code that specifically relates to special education. And there they can read what the provisions of the regulations are, or they can Google general information on the internet. There's so much information that's available out there for interested parents or parties.
So let me go through a timeline. If someone begins to suspect that their child has a disability, and they bring in the competent professionals, or maybe a pediatrician, a psychologist, a special education professional, and they come to conclude, yes, there is a problem. So what would you recommend? That they actually go look at the law themselves, or immediately go to the school board on their own, or maybe contact a lawyer?
I think that the best thing to do is, if your viewers find themselves in a situation where they have they suspect that there may be some kind of delays in the development of their child. And often parents will know that because they'll either have an older child and then a second or third child that's developing differently, that's making them question the developmental process of, that child. I think that the best thing to do is to talk about it with their pediatrician. Then usually they will be referred, or they should take the step to go to a child developmental center within a local hospital, like for example Valley Hospital, St. Joseph's Hospital, or Hackensack Hospitals. I'm just naming a few around this area.
Right.
They have developmental centers where they have a group of professionals that actually evaluate. And they're well-known professionals in the state that actually will evaluate their child and take a look at them and say, yeah, this is what we suspect your child has. They will do a professional evaluation. Subsequent to that, what is recommended is for the parents to contact the child study team within their district, present them with the information that they've obtained from whatever professional or entity has evaluated their child, and try to seek services. And at that point, they will, depending on the age of the child, get together for a meeting with this group of professionals. And this is where we go back to the child study team, because what happens is, if it's a child that's of age where they are entitled to be educated within a public school, then what happens is they will have a meeting to determine eligibility of this child for special education and related services. That's when the parents will have an opportunity to present any kind of report or any kind of evaluative data that they would like to present to the team, which will be comprised of the professionals that I had mentioned to you before, and they will then have the right to agree or disagree based on the information presented that the child does need to be evaluated.
Okay, so
if
you have this evaluation completed and there's agreement among all parties that the child is in need of special education, that's great. But there are times when the parents believe, and certain professionals believe, there are issues, and the school board says no.
Absolutely. And at that point, the parents still have an opportunity, if they choose to, file for a due process hearing within the administrative courts and have that information reviewed. They always have an option of having a higher entity take a look at the evaluative data that they've presented. And they may need, at that point, testimony of the experts that they've hired or the experts that have worked with the child in order to determine that they need certain services. And at that point, the school district most likely is compelled to reevaluate their position, or at least give that child their own evaluation, which what it means is it's a series usually of standardized tests that are utilized in order to determine whether or not a child is in fact disabled under the IDEA. And the IDEA has 13